So, as humans, we like to put stuff into boxes. It makes it easier to understand, to organize. Scientists really like to do this, and of course this carries over into ecology too. And so we see that we have this hierarchy of organization where you start out with like small individual units and then group them bigger and bigger and bigger as these units get larger. In ecology, our simplest, most fundamental unit is the individual. So that one living being is the most fundamental unit of ecology. Then from there you go to a population. So think about the population of Stillwater, Oklahoma. It is a group of the same species living in an area, right? And so you see some 5 properties of a population. One, like it is a species living in that area. Another thing is it has a geographic range, so we know how large the city of Stillwater is. There is an abundance, so we know how many people are in the city of Stillwater, give or take, right? It also changes in size and composition, so that number of people will go up and down. Just think about when all the students come back, the population of Stillwater increases. When they leave, it decreases. That also changes the composition. So there's a lot more 20-year-old people whenever the students are here, and then that decreases when they leave. And so that is your population. One thing about putting stuff in boxes is sometimes it doesn't fit. So, like, what is a species? I said, like, we are a species, right? The species of Homo sapiens, of humans. What are some other species that you can think of? What defines a species? Like, Ernst Mayr came up with the biological species concept, saying, like, a species is a naturally breeding population that has a range, and it won't breed with other species. But over time, like, we've realized that's not always true, and it gets really messy when you throw in genetics and things that can clone themselves, like parthenogenic lizards, like. And so there's not one set term for what a species is. And so I'm not going to make you know what a species is. Just know it as a unit, okay? So we go from the individual to the population to the community. What is the community of Stillwater? Well, when we're talking about it in the sense of ecology, it's going to be all the species living within Stillwater. So what all species can you find inside Stillwater, Oklahoma? A lot. So we have the humans, of course, right? And your pets, dogs, cats, lizards, birds, whatever. But we also have stuff like bacteria and fungi and protists and animals and tons of different species in this community. And then we go from community to the larger ecosystem. So ecosystem is going to be a community or more than one community and all the abiotic parts. So stuff like climate, like wind, temperature, abiotic stuff, like what the soil's made out of, like what kind of rocks are found here, what kind of minerals are found here. So there's a lot of different abiotic stuff that interacts with this community. We'll talk more about like how to study this stuff in a little bit, but typically when we get to the ecosystem level, we're really focused on how like things are moving through that environment, like how energy is coming from the sun and how that energy flows throughout the environment before it gets radiated back off into space. A lot of things in your ecosystem get cycled, so while energy will come in and out, a lot of the materials stay the same. So you have your nitrogen cycle, your carbon cycle, your water cycle, like all there within that ecosystem. So again, we focus on that movement of matter and energy at this level. All right, and then we get to the biosphere. So the biosphere is talking about the entire Earth, all the ecosystems of Earth. That is the big picture, all right? So when we're studying these things, if you take an individual approach to ecology, we're going to be looking for a way that individual's morphology, physiology, behavior helps it to survive in its environment. So you'll be testing stuff like maybe like grip strength or speed, like right here, right? Certain adaptations. So we're really interested in those adaptations. And adaptation's just a characteristic that makes that organism well suited for its environment. When we think about adaptations, this isn't exactly right, because the individual doesn't adapt. It's the population that adapts. So you can't evolve, but your group can evolve. So you can have an adaptation, but you don't create your own adaptation. Then we move to the population approach. Studying populations, you look at how that population is changed over time and what is affecting those change. So here we're looking at China and changes in the age structure over time. So here's like your population, here's your time scale. You can see people. So here's age, yeah, whatever. You look at the change over time. And then community, kind of the similar, except we're looking more at how many different species are there and how that abundance of each species changes. So you're looking at diversity within an area, the relative abundance of different organisms in that same place. And then again, when we get to ecosystems, we're really looking at how energy is moving, how matter is cycling, that kind of stuff. And then in the biosphere approach, we're looking at kind of the same thing, except on a much larger scale. So you'll look at how the movements of air and water and energy and chemical elements as they're all over the surface and how they move. So here we're looking at how wind is influenced based on the surface and how you have like this warm wind here that then goes out to the poles and cools down and then comes back in, and you create these little cycles. So here you can see that warm air rising up, and so as it rises up, it creates a vacuum that the cold air fills in. It cools down, it drops down, and it comes back. And you have these little cycles all over the earth. So that's kind of taking the biosphere approach. So just a couple of concept questions, like what is ecology? Think about it. Like we just went through the different layers and kind of how to study it. What do you think kind of puts all that into a nice little box? Like, what is ecology? And then why do we consider both individuals and ecosystems to be ecological systems? How can you study individuals? How can you study ecosystems? How does that work? And then what are the unique processes that we use to examine these individuals, populations, communities, and ecosystems? With that, we're going to stop and we'll pick up with how they are governed